Hi, this is Approved of God coming to you once again with another video. Let's listen to the number one Catholic apologist from Catholic Answers, Jimmy Akins, and the most ridiculous doctrine up to date that the Catholic Church expounds, and that is the perpetual virginity of Mary.
Question for Jimmy Akin.
Hi, thank you very much. I just had a quick question. I always use the Hollow app to pray the Rosary, and it just hit me that Bishop Robert Barron says that Our Lady was, I think it's from Revelation, I'm not 100% sure, but she was crying out in birth pangs, and she's seated with a crown of 12 stars, I think. And that's how we know the Virgin Mary is our Blessed Mother and all that stuff. But if she's free of original sin, does it, she's not supposed to have birth pangs? Or because in the Catechism of the Catholic Church at 499, citing Lumen Gentium 57, it says it seems to follow, therefore, that she would have been free of labor pains. So I'm just confused on that part.
Okay, so you said Catechism of the Catholic Church 499? Okay, so let's actually read the text so we got it in front of us. It says, the deepening of faith in the virginal motherhood led the Church to confess Mary's real and perpetual virginity, even in the act of giving birth to the Son of God made man. In fact, Christ's birth did not diminish his mother's virginal integrity, but sanctified it, and so the liturgy of the Church celebrates Mary as a Parthenos, the ever virgin. So that really doesn't address the question of birth pains. What it does indicate is that Mary did not cease to be a virgin in the process of giving birth to Jesus. Historically, that's been understood in terms of her having a miraculous birth, where Jesus did not pass through the birth canal. However, as the theologian Ludwig Ott discusses in his Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma, if I recall correctly, there are, and even if I'm not remembering that correctly, there certainly are other ways of interpreting virginity, because as long as you haven't had, from a very common understanding of virginity, as long as you haven't had relations with a man, you're still a virgin. And so, obviously in giving birth, she didn't have relations with a man, and so on that conception, she would still be a virgin. That's the essential point, is that she was always a virgin. Whether you explain that preservation of her virginity in terms of her having a miraculous birth for Jesus, or simply in terms of she never had relations with a man, is something that people can take different positions on. But this doesn't tell us anything about birth pains, because she could have had birth pains and then had a miraculous birth. The normal labor may have started and then a miracle happened, or she may have had a fully natural birth that involved standard labor pains. When it comes to squaring that with the image of the woman in Revelation 12 that you say, although I didn't hear this, Bishop Barron refer to, the image of the woman in Revelation 12 is polyvalent, meaning it refers to more than one thing. So in addition to referring to the Virgin Mary, it also refers to Israel and to the church and things like that. And so some interpreters could look at the labor pains that she's described as having and say, okay, that applies to Israel, the pains of the coming forth of the Messiah, or it reflects persecution of the church, in connection with the coming of the Messiah, but it doesn't apply to Mary. On the other hand, you could say, no, it also applies to Mary. So I think that passage is ambiguous and people can read it different ways. And a few years ago, there was a movie that came out. I forget the exact name of the movie, but it was about Jesus's birth, and it was big in Catholic circles. But some Catholics were concerned because it was made by evangelicals, and it depicted Mary having birth pains. And Stephen Gradanis, the Catholic movie reviewer, actually consulted with Cardinal Avery Dulles about that, and you can read his review where he talks about his conversation with Avery Dulles. And Avery Dulles said basically Catholics can look at it both ways. There's not a definitive teaching on this. There's not even an authoritative teaching on this. Catholics could look at it both ways in terms of the birth pains questions. So that's what I'd have to say. Basically, I think that it's possible for Mary to have birth pains. However, I do want to note that the tradition that she did not have birth pains is astonishingly early. For example, in the early to mid 2nd century, there was a document published known as the Infancy Gospel of James. It's also sometimes called the Proto-Evangelium of James. But in the Infancy Gospel of James, Mary does not have birth pains. She has a miraculous birth that does not involve pain. Now, that's in the early to mid 2nd century. There's an earlier reference, if memory serves, in the Odes of Solomon, which were about the year 100, to her also having a miraculous birth. But then even earlier than that, and this is the earliest one I know of, in AD 67, a Christian apocalypse known as the Ascension of Isaiah was written. And in the Ascension of Isaiah, it very clearly depicts Mary as not having birth pains and as having a miraculous birth. So she and Joseph are sitting in the house, and all of a sudden they see this bright light. And then there's this little baby there, and Mary's womb is as it was before she was pregnant. And so Jesus teleported out of her womb in a brilliant glow of light. And this is AD 67. This is being written in my estimation, just a couple of years after the canonical Gospels, and it preserves Jesus traditions that are not found in the canonical Gospels. And so we can see here, even in the 1st century, contemporaneous with the Gospels, we have Jesus traditions about Mary having a painless, miraculous birth. So that evidence also needs to be taken into consideration in trying to sort out this question.
Thanks, Norman. That brings us to the break. Right back with more Ask Me Anything with Jimmy A.